In this video, I'll show you how to make the candy corn for our fall design series. I'm using the Essentials workspace, and I'm going to come down to Ruler and Grids and click on the center icon, which is click to show grid. Then I'll come down to Guides, and I'm going to click the third icon, which is turning on my Smart Guides. And then under Snap Options, I'll click the center icon, which is Snap to Grid. On the left toolbar, I have the advanced setting for my tools. If yours is showing half of these tools, then just click on the little ellipsis, come over to this icon and click on advanced instead of basic. Now I am going to start with the rectangle tool. It's on the left toolbar, but I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut M. And then I'll click on the artboard, and that brings up the rectangle dialog box. All I have to do is type in 3, and that gives me a 3-inch width. Then I tab down to height, and I type in 4, and then I press the return key, and that gives me my rectangle, which is 3 by 4. I'll get the selection tool, which is keyboard shortcut V. It is on the left toolbar, and I'm going to drag my rectangle to where it lines up with the thicker lines on the grid. Now I need to add some color to my rectangle. I'll come over to the Properties panel and I'll click on the Fill icon, and I'm going to use the CMYK colors 0, 80, 95, 0. Then I'm going to add a black stroke, and I'm going to increase this to 2 points. Now I'm going to get the Add Anchor Point tool, and it's found on the left toolbar. You may be seeing the Pen tool, but you also can see there's a little triangle down here by the pen, and that means if I press down on Pen, there are going to be some other options that pop up, and that's how I find the Add Anchor Point tool, or I can just use the keyboard shortcut plus. I'll use my grid as a guide, and I'm going to press right in the center of the top of the rectangle, and that adds an anchor. And you can see the little plus sign next to the pen tool, which is showing that is the Add Anchor tool. Next, I'm going to get the Delete Anchor Point tool. It's found in the same place, but I'm just going to use the keyboard shortcut minus, and you can see how that changed to a minus next to my little pen, and I'm going to click on the top right anchor and the top left anchor. And then I'll get the Direct Selection tool, keyboard shortcut A, and that's found on the left toolbar as well. I'm going to drag just ever so slightly on this little handle down to about 0.12 of an inch and release my mouse, and then click on the artboard to deselect that anchor. Now I'm going to select the bottom right anchor and then hold my shift key down so I can select the bottom left anchor at the same time. And I'll drag these anchors up to the center and probably, let's stop here, 0.32 of an inch and release my mouse. And now with my object still selected, I'm going to drag it up until the top rests against one of these thick lines on the grid. And then I'll click on the artboard to deselect it. Next, I'll get the rectangle tool, keyboard shortcut M, and click on the artboard. And this time I want a 1-inch square. So I'll type in 1, tab, 1, and then press the return key. I'll come over to the Properties panel and change the fill color to white, then get the Selection tool, keyboard shortcut V. I'll drag my rectangle over and center it over this object, and I'm going to have the tops resting right next to each other. Now I'll get the rectangle tool again, keyboard shortcut M, press down on the artboard, and this time I want a 4-inch wide rectangle, and I leave the height alone and just press enter. And now I have my rectangle. I'll get the Selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and I'm going to drag this rectangle over, and I'll center it over my object, but the bottom of it is going to rest against a thick line on the grid. And you can see that it's a little bit lower than my orange object, so we'll just place it there. The 1-inch square is going to stay white, but this rectangle is going to change to a yellow. And I'm going to use the CMYK colors 0, 10, 95, 0. Now I'm going to select all of the objects, and then I'll get the Shape Builder tool. It's on the left toolbar. It has 2 circles and an arrow. It is keyboard shortcut Shift M. Once that's selected, I can hold down my Option key and come around and just click on the areas that I don't want, and they are deleted. Now I'll get the Selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and I'm going to click on the artboard to deselect my candy. Now we want to curve these lines to make this look just a little more natural, and we're going to use the Curvature tool for that. It's on the left toolbar. It's right next to where the pen tool sits, and we can click on it, or we can use the keyboard shortcut Shift Accent. Now I'm going to come over and I'll start with the top of the candy corn, and I'm going to click on the white object, and the first click just selects the object. Then I click again, and this places an anchor where I want to drag. So I'm going to just hold my mouse down and I'll drag down until I have the line where I want it, and then release my mouse. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the yellow object. I'll click on it once, that selects it, and then I click on it again, that gives me the anchor that I'm going to drag. So I hold down my mouse and I just drag it down until I have it where I want it and release my mouse. And then I'll get the Selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and I'm going to select all of these objects and I'm going to group them together, keyboard shortcut Command G. Then I'll click on the artboard to deselect them. I'm going to rotate this first piece, and I'll use the Rotate tool, keyboard shortcut R, and I'm going to just rotate it slightly to the left, and then I'll get the Selection tool, keyboard shortcut V. I'm going to make one copy, and I'll hold down my Option key and just drag my mouse to make that copy. I'm going to change the size of this, so I'll come up to Object and then Transform, Scale, and I'm going to scale it to 95%. I have scale and stroke effects turned off because I want to keep my strokes the same weight as my other objects that we have. So I'll click OK, and so it's just slightly smaller. I'll use the Rotate tool, keyboard shortcut R, and I'll drag it over here just a little bit, get the Selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and kind of move it down slightly, and then I'm going to make one more piece, and so I'll hold down my Option key and just drag, and I'm going to change the size of this, so I'll go up to Object, Transform, Scale, and it's going to be 95% as well, and I'll say OK, and then I'll get the Rotate tool, keyboard shortcut R, and rotate it, and we want it just not quite straight is all. Then I want this piece to be behind the other 2 pieces, so I'll use the keyboard shortcut Shift Command left bracket and get the Selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and I'll just move these until I have them kind of where I want them, and then I will select all of these items and I'll group them, keyboard shortcut Command G, and we have our candy corn. Now I'm going to reduce my design 50% so that it's more in line with the other designs that we have. So I'll come up to Object, Transform, Scale, and I'm going to type in 50% and say OK. And now we have our candy corn for our fall design. In the next video, I'll show you how to make an art brush so that we can use it to make a fall floral design. If you haven't subscribed yet to my channel, be sure and do so that you don't miss a single episode. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye now.